interrogating your assumptions, and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
We're here right now on the eve of this mayoral election, so I don't want to color the question too much, but politically, what do you think the city of LA is 30 years later?
I'm not going to answer your question directly right now. Let me begin with this.
Okay.
I think we have to frame it in terms of what has led to the frustration, the unbelievableness that we can ever have justice in the black community from black people. You probably have discussed Latasha Harlow's case.
We
haven't
did.
big mistake. Okay. That was a horrible case. But it came just before the uprising, too. And what set everyone off, in my opinion, was not that she was so much convicted of manslaughter, but that she got no jail time.
Soon shall do.
That's right.
Yes.
No jail. That was, wait a minute. If I were a black person doing that, do you think I would be given probation like that? No, I'd be sent to prison. Forget jail. I'd be sent to prison. So there's a deep, deep frustration. And you can go back and you can still go forward today. I interviewed a young man. I wrote a book review about his journey in his book in Chicago, where he had never been arrested by anyone who lived in South Chicago, okay? Never been arrested. His mother was a lifetime federal employee. After graduating high school, he was going to go to community college. He and a bunch of guys went to a party over the border into Wisconsin. He's ultimately arrested for a rape he did not commit, sentenced to over 25 years in prison. Clean record, absolutely clean record there. He today is a practicing lawyer only because an innocent project worked that case, and they determined there is no evidence he ever committed a rape. It's that kind of frustration that people see today. I can't point to a case in Los Angeles where you have that today, but it's still there. But the point is, I believe we have moved a good distance, but there is still, as Pastor said, a long, long way to go. How many boys graduate from high school? Girls, many more. Give you an example. I was trying to recruit black and brown and Asian people as deputy DAs, openly gay. I don't care. I want them in the office. I went to USC and talked to their first year class, and there was good representation of black and brown and Asian people. But what was missing, there wasn't one black man there. There were, I think, about 7, 8 black women. And when I asked the question to them, when it was my turn to ask them questions, I said, so where are the black guys? And this one woman jumped out and said, you know where, you put them in prison. And that's where they were, in fact, because they didn't have the opportunities that other had. So I think things are moving slow, too slow. I mean, I'm 80 years old at this point.
You don't look 80, man.
Yeah, well.
You're looking good, Gil Garcetti. You still keeping it together, man.
Thank you. But you can't give up hope. I mean, it's just like in the Ukraine. God, I said that. I didn't mean to. Not the Ukraine, it's Ukraine. The Russians refer to it as a region of Ukraine. Okay, Ukraine. I have an exchange student granddaughter. She's 21 years old there. And she is fighting for her country. She says, I don't want to die, but if I have to die for freedom, I'm going to do it. I sent her this morning an article from the war between Russia and Japan, where again, it was Russia that had the huge advantage militarily, people, and Japan beat them because they were motivated to fight. And that's what Ukrainians are. Is black people have to stay motivated to fight. That's what they have to do. You can't give up.
I feel like we've been motivated to fight since we were enslaved, and we haven't given up despite some pretty major obstacles. And honestly, I love hearing you reflect back and talk about the change that you see. And I was actually surprised to hear you supporting George Gascon and some of the measures that he's taken, because I feel like it's in contrast to some of the choices that you made when you were district attorney in those 3 strikes cases where you have like maybe a third nonviolent felony, where we went for prescribed sentences that ended up in the mass incarceration, and I would argue over incarceration of black people.
And I agree with that. You may not remember that when that proposition was on the ballot, I fought against it. I fought saying that it should be limited to only violent and serious felonies. The voters overwhelmingly did it. I probably made the mistake. I said, all right, the voters vote, I have to enforce it. I could have maybe taken the position, I'm not going to enforce it. I don't know what would have happened, but I didn't like it. Were there some cases? Don't forget, we had 1,100 lawyers in our office and tens of thousands of cases. And were there some cases that, most of the cases I knew nothing about? Absolutely. I can give you an example of one that we probably don't have the time to do that, because I really believe that it should be for those, unless this is the guy who was a known gang member, murdered people, killed witnesses, etc. If you really have hard proof of that, then use it. Otherwise, you should never use it. So yes, we've imprisoned much too many black and brown people. And if you look at death row, who's on death row? Overwhelmingly black and brown.
Brian Dunn, as a civil rights lawyer, I'm watching my clock. I got 3 minutes. I want to get another comment from you and one more comment from you, and I'll let you all go. As a civil rights lawyer, as we remember in the late great Johnny Carter, what's your sense of whether our community is being as protected as it ought to be 30 years later? In other words, how much longer are we going to need people like you to represent us when we get caught up in situations like these?
Hopefully not much longer. And I think that we have to focus more on our belief as to who we are as black people. And we have to realize our internal divinity. We have to realize that we are not who we are told that we are. And when a person realizes that they don't have to be anything, and they don't have to resort to violence as a first resort, it opens up a lot of avenues to them. And we have been beat down psychologically and culturally in terms of the I am from birth in this country. And I think that our focus should be more on determining our own destiny, rather than having it decided by how the police treat us, or how the mayor treats us, or how the DA treats us. We can do it on our own, and we always should, when we realize who we are. We just need to realize who we are, Travis.
We'll give Bishop Ulmer the last word here, and that's the way it should be. Because I'm looking for a message of hope. The Bible that I read says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Dominique and I have been debating this all morning. Even when there's no reason to be optimistic, we can remain hopeful. 30 years later, in a minute and a half, give me a quick sermon about how in times like these, even we remain hopeful.
I think you just gave the sermon, so we can stop right there. But I think it's on that level, and it kind of goes back to something that Dominique said. The suspicion, the lack of trust has got to be dealt with on an individual level. And I've got to learn how to trust you. I've got to listen to you. And that's got to start even before we get to the ballot box. That's got to start in relationships. That's got to start on the corner. And that's going to have some give and some take from both sides. Police have got to step out, and then we've got to step out enough to at least trust God if we don't trust them.
Bishop Kenneth C. Ulmer of the Faithful Central Church, Brian Dunn, we thank you, sir, and Gil Garcetti, former DA, thank you all for coming by to see us. We appreciate you. Have a great rest of the day. We'll continue. Now,